Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Relief Podcast. Today, I'm really very grateful and very happy to have this episode upcoming with none only than Rob Cressy. Rob is a leader in many fronts, a disciplinarian, a teacher, a leader by example, a committed student, someone who, again, his proximity to power he's built it within. Let him also speak for himself too. Rob, welcome very much to the show.
Thank you for having me. And the specific language that you used right there, I'm like gobbling it all up to re-put, because the way that we see ourselves or would describe ourselves versus the way that others would describe ourselves, I actually believe, and it's something that I both live for myself as well as mirror back to my clients. It's actually one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself, but also be aware of in a not what other people think of me manner, but like, man, imagine if I treated myself the way that you just introduced me. Because we have so many fears, judgments, self-limiting beliefs, stories that we tell ourselves that do or do not serve us. Versus, boom, you so eloquently said these things. And I'm like, yep. And I love all of that. So you nailed it right there. So put it this way, you're going to learn a lot more about the both of us together just in a simple conversation. So the words will come through in energy.
Well, you know what? You already live the second E in our core values of exuding positivity. How do you weather all storms with a smile?
It is simple, not easy, but simple. And I'll take you back to the very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey 12 years ago, where I went from making multiple six figures as a digital ad sales rep, work hard, play hard, party bro, to go all in at living my dreams of getting paid to talk about sports for a living. And I asked myself one simple question. Remember, I was starting at zero. I had no growth mindset, no self-awareness. I am raw as raw gets. And I was like, what will help me accomplish my goals faster, positivity or negativity? And the answer is positivity. Of course, negativity will take you further away from where you want to go. So I made this a binary equation, a 1 or a 0. Positivity is a 1 and negativity is a 0. So I turned radiate positivity into a core value in my life. And as I speak right now, I'm looking in my studio and I have a sign that hangs up that says, happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life. So when you put these two things together, radiate positivity, 1 versus 0, happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life. For me, I understand that negativity is not going to create what I want in my life. Oh, Rob, but it's not that easy. Well, it's really an awareness practice is what this is. So when negativity enters into my life, it starts to create an incongruency for me to where it would almost be like if you don't like scary movies and all of a sudden something scary comes up and you're like, oh my God, I don't like this. That's how I react around negativity, because I'm all in on living my dreams and being the best version of myself for myself and my family and everybody else around me. So I don't have time for negativity.
Wow. I mean, that's a shining example, and I'm fully taking it in. But it's also taken me years to kind of just get on that level where I can absorb it all, right? What would you tell somebody who's on step 1, who feels really stuck and embedded in all kinds of either illusions or just realities and circumstances? How do they kind of start walking into a better path?
2 simple structures, and these are foundational. Number 1, the life in the game that you and I play of growth, I see as only a +1 or a 0, not a -1. So in the name of being the best version or a better version of yourself, once again, happiness is a function of expectations. And if you create this standard for yourself, but then you don't do something, it can be very easy to make yourself feel bad. So all of a sudden, for example, let's say you wanted to go for a run or go to the gym today, and then you didn't do it. You're like, oh man, I'm such an idiot. I wanted to do that, but I didn't create the time. And now all of a sudden you're making yourself feel bad about this. So once you understand that, it's like, whoa, wait a second. That is not the game that we're playing. We're not going to enter a game where one of the scenarios, if we do not do it, is a -1. It can just be a 0. And when you understand this, and I say this to all of my clients, and this is a beginning level all the way to a mastery level concept, just live in the world of +1 or 0. Because now, and actually I'm going to add in a little bonus thing, because here it is, the way that I think about happiness, success, high performance, and being the best version of yourself is stacking ones over zeros. It's all about the micro. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, because here's the third thing about this. This radiate positivity and happiness is not about perfection. It is all about an awareness that says, when I notice myself slipping out of my core value of radiate positivity, because of course it doesn't mean like I walk around life, puppy dogs and rainbows all day, every day, that bad things don't happen to me. No. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I've got clients. I've got friends. I feel everything else that everybody else does as well, maybe even more so because I'm so aware of these things. But the key is to not hold yourself to this rigid, perfect standard of, if I don't, then I'm bad. No, let's make this light, easy, and fun for ourselves. Let's start stacking ones, 1 over 0. I'm going to do this. 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 Anything that I do positively is a +1. If I do not do something, it's not a -1, and it's not about it's not about perfection. It is ultimately about your ability to be aware of when you are being or not being that thing. And in doing so, you can really start simple and easy. And ultimately, now that I think about wrapping a bow on this, it's all around one phrase: self-awareness, because I know what it's like to live the first 3 decades of my life without it. And it wasn't until that very first day, that very first morning of entrepreneurship, there was no one to tell me what to do. When do I wake up? Do I call clients? Do I go to work out or anything? When I was like, holy smokes, everything is on me. Every single thought, every single action, every single anything. And for a lot of people, certainly at the beginning, that can feel overwhelming. Oh my God, you're telling me I'm in charge of everything. But if you've lived a non-intentional life, one where you've lived by default, not by design, it can feel like a lot. But when you flip that script and you live by design, not by default, it becomes, holy smokes, are you kidding me? Everything is on me. Let's go.
So, I mean, just adding on that, like you mentioned, crossing into that 3rd decade of life and perhaps taking shit more serious, right? Knowing that you have to set an order for yourself. And a lot of times you touch on it a lot in your content, creating a life that, control, creative ease, and flow. So how is somebody who, like you said, has responsibilities, needs to be present for family so that you can create the magical moments and memories that last while you create a business that creates a legacy? How do you kind of, and again, I know that word balance gets tossed around a lot, but what does that kind of right goal set look like, at least for you? And what would you think it looked like for someone else who may not have set goals or consistent goals or any goals at all?
So balance is a unique word in the world of entrepreneurship or in general, because a lot of people think of it as a 50-50 balance. It's like, I've got my personal life and my work life, and they need to be 50-50. I do not subscribe to that version of the term balance. I do understand other terms of balance more holistically, higher level. And the term that I prefer around this is the word dynamic, because sometimes, and the term could actually be dynamic equilibrium. So we're talking about being centered in our life. So instead of, I have 2 buckets, 50% here, 50% here. Imagine writing down the most important areas of your life. So it can be anything from my wife, my son, my business, how I feel, my health and well-being, my exploration and play, my finances. So now maybe you've got 8 buckets or big life categories for yourself. Well, now you understand and you're like, oh, okay, well, I want to start filling up those various buckets of my life. Which one of these, and it's probably all of them, are non-negotiables? And this is another thing for those starting out at the beginning. And quite frankly, all of our conversation is both a beginner level and a mastery level, because all of them are like bricks on a house that they stack on top of each other. So if you don't have one of these things, it's kind of hard to get to the higher level, because we're constantly reminded on doing these things, which is why people like you and I do the work consistently, because we know how easy it is to slip back into the old version of ourselves by not doing that work. So now when you can start to look at your life in terms of, let's go 8 buckets by design, you're like, oh, okay, well, sometimes in some seasons of your life, 1 or 2 buckets might be having more heat than another one. So for example, anybody going through 75 Hard or the Live Hard program, maybe their well-being bucket is running a little bit fuller than it would be their exploration and play bucket. So maybe they're working out more and doing a lot more about their well-being than they are on going on adventures. And it doesn't mean that you can't have both, but it's a way of understanding that sometimes some things are going to run hotter than others, but that's why it can always shift back to where your ability to have both the awareness and the systems and processes in place that allow you to never get a 0 in one of the buckets. Sometimes you're just shifting your energy, your intention, or your time from some to other ones. And it's constantly like a flow or a ribbon of the up and down, the up and down. And quite frankly, this can work on a moment to moment basis, day by day, month to month, year to year.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. And I hope people can take that all in. And so what your allegory kind of reminded me of, actually a few things. First, I'm Greek, right? So it's my first language. Areti, right? I'll pronounce it the proper way instead of the Midwest way. It is a way of life. It's a commitment, right? It's kind of what bridged us all together. My COO is an Arete person, right? If I didn't invite them to a party, instead of just show up and say I was there, we wouldn't be connected, right? And a lot of us have been on the same stages, in the same rooms, right? And at first you're nervous, right? Talk about that imposter syndrome. Talk about the first time you showed up to one of these types of events. And you said, I just want to get better. I kind of don't know how, but I'm going to find a way forward.
I mean, how much time do we have on this one? Because
go express yourself. Be free.
And of course, saying that in a very self-deprecating manner, because imposter syndrome, it is something that on your journey is going to be something that is likely ever present, and your and our ability to create with it is the thing, or one of the things, that can help catapult you into growth. Because at the very beginning of any journey, like, remember, I was not this person 12 years ago. I never set out to become a coach. So for a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to become a coach. This is this thing that I want to do. Never on my horizon. As I'd mentioned, my dream was to get paid to talk about sports for a living. But here's the thing, and this is even before I joined Arete or any entrepreneurial group, is that I sat there at 0 and knew that I needed to get better. And it was as simple as that, is like, how do I guarantee that money isn't the only metric of success for my life? Because if you're sitting there, I had no clients, no website, no revenue, no nothing. And with this, I was like, okay, well, how can I still have a metric of success that is not just financially motivated? Because I came from the old life where finance was everything. And I was like, well, if I learn something today, I've guaranteed that I'm better today than I was yesterday. Therefore, I realized there's two things no one can ever take from you. Number one, what you learn, and number two, your mindset. Therefore, personal growth and development is and has been the number one thing in my life, first thing in the morning, every single day for the last 12 years. So I estimate over that time, my morning routine for personal growth and development has been anywhere from 1 to 2 hours every day, weekends included, for 12 years. And it just so happens that when you live like that for a decade, eventually I got hired to become a self-development coach to help make people better at business by being better at life, not because I wanted to be this or somehow I saw the opportunity. Similar to our conversation here, I can do this with my eyes closed because I was not this person. So I've seen every single hole in my boat. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, because I've come from zero and I know I am not where my vision is, I believe this is probably the biggest challenge for both beginners and mastery level people, because you know how much potential you have inside of you. You also know what you don't know, or you're not where you want to be. And one of the things that changed my life about 2 years ago regarding this is being a coach, I'm on the receiving end of a lot of coaching. And I said to my coach, I was like, for the last decade of my life, I have not stopped thinking about my entrepreneurial journey and how I can get better and how I can create my vision. And it's just looping in my head nonstop. And he goes, Rob, you have a choice. You can either choose to be a victim or you can choose to be at peace. Because by design, with the path that you chose to go through as an entrepreneur, you are always doing something new that you have never done before. So therefore, you will always be thinking about the things that you have not done, because that is the path. So do you want to be the victim at this, or do you choose to be at peace? It doesn't mean that thoughts are going to go away. This is just the story you are telling yourself about the story that's going on in your head. And I sat there and I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, so peace is just a choice? He's like, yeah, you can just choose to be at peace with this. And it's like, oh my God, how did I not see this? It took me 40 years of my life in 5 minutes. And I was like, cool, I choose to be at peace with this. And then the light bulb really went off. And I was like, well, wait a second. If I can choose to be at peace with the fact that I'm always thinking about my journey all the time and all that I want to create, can't I then just choose to be at peace with everything? Like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I want to activate this in myself. So I was like, I want to turn this into a declaration. So for any of you who do the I am statements, he's like, cool. He puts me on the spot. He's like, what do you got? And there's 12 other people on this group call. So I'm being coached on the spot. And I say, I am that I'm at peace with everything. And in that instant, my entire life changed, because I realized that peace is just a choice. And I share this around imposter syndrome because we can feel like we are not enough in the journey of something, but can you actually use that as fuel to the fact that, wait a second, we're actually living a life by design where we are doing things we have never done before. Therefore, there is something that comes inside of us that says, wow, this feels a little bit challenging or difficult or incongruent right now, or man, I see all these other people doing all these things and I'm not there yet. Can you actually turn that obstacle into the opportunity? And when you transcend what imposter syndrome means from I don't belong here, or as the air quotes, the self-limiting fake it till you make it, versus the empowering, man, I don't feel like I belong on this thing, but let's go. I'm going to keep walking forward in the name of being the best version of myself.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it reminds me a lot of things. I think, going back to, you mentioned the word dynamic, right? And dynamic, the source word is dynamic, which is strength, right? So what kind of strength, what kind of dynamics do you want to put in your ship, your battleship, whatever, your passenger ship, your energy bus, if you want to go to John Gordon? You know, is that the skill sets you want to acquire? Are those the things that you want to master? Like communication skills, right? Being able to speak better, right? I mean, how many episodes are you in now on your podcast?
I've published over 1,000.
Right, right. So when did you, at what number did you say, hey, I got this? I'm in the flow.
It's interesting because that has never been a thought. And here's why. And this is actually a superpower of mine because, as I mentioned, my goal was to get paid. My dream was to get paid to talk about sports for a living. So I would just sit there and all I wanted to do is create sports blogs, like writing or videos or podcasts. So when I finally quit my job, I said to myself, I would regret it for the rest of my life if I did not give it a shot at making my dreams happen. So I burned the boats and went all in. And a mentor said something to me that changed my life forever. And so for anybody else on a journey, I encourage you to really listen to what I'm about to say. He goes, Rob, if you ever hope to get paid to do what you love, you better be doing it already. And I was like, all right, I want to get paid to talk about sports for a living. And this is over a decade ago. I was like, how do I do that? I need to be talking about sports. So I was at zero. So I taught myself podcasting, audio, video editing, being a host, being on camera, social media marketing, brand building, essentially all things to building a media company. So when a lot of people are challenged to create a podcast or be on camera, it's because they have all of the reasons why not, because I'm starting at zero. What are people going to think about me? What do I sound like? What do I look like? But for me, I was like, oh, so you're telling me my dream's on the other side of me just talking about sports on camera all day, every single day. So because of this, I have never stopped. And that becomes the superpower of creation for me, because why would I stop when my dream's on the other side of not stopping? It's like create, create, create. So because of this lens, here's the gift that everybody else also doesn't realize. You know what 1,000 episodes really is? 2 episodes a week for like 10 years or some number like that. Like, oh my God, Rob, how do you create the time to do 2? No, this is the power of consistency. Because what if I told you that you could do a 3-minute episode or a 7-minute episode or a 30-minute episode? It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be 2 hours. It could be 1 minute. You could say, welcome to 1 Minute Heaven with R&D. And you're like, what? Yeah. So you can chop this up differently. And then you just say, well, let me keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. And guess what? Guess what one of the foundational things is through every single part of our conversation right here? The power of consistency and just keep showing up.
And you most certainly have. And as our fellow teacher, Ed Milet, has said, extremity builds capacity, right? So you have kind of hit those gold spots, right? Instead of stopping there, I guess you imagine, you follow the page from Relentless and Winning of Tim Grover, right? Who we probably both met at some event or somewhere. And you got to go back into the valley and get that win, right? You hit the mountaintop, you hit your goal, right? And it's not over yet, right? But you get to play again, right? You didn't hit your highest success. Maybe you actually lost, but you know what? Tomorrow is a new day. And just that consistency factor that you mentioned, it puts you ahead of the pack. Because who's going to show up first thing in the morning when it's cold outside, except for the consistency and the commitment you built to you, your faith, and your family, that you're going to work out and hit that 75 hard goal, not just for your post on Instagram, so you can be a stronger you and attract those opportunities that just have somehow just fall in your lap. Is it the fish fell in your boat and now you can have sushi for lunch?
So let's get to the core of this, because you're bringing this out to me because I'm really present to someone right now at the beginning of their journey. And beginning is relative. It doesn't mean you're 20 years old. It can mean you're just starting something else new. And remember, all of these are mastery level principles. And we always hear about Simon Sinek's start with why, but I feel like it's deeper than that, because for me, what truly drives this is all around, yes, the creation of my dreams and vision and being the best version of myself. And that's for my wife and for my soon to be 3-year-old son with us. They are the anchor and the reason for all of this. But if I really peel all of this back, it goes back to the beginning of my journey in the workforce. At age 21, I graduated from college at Miami of Ohio University with a degree in marketing. My dream at the time was to work for an ad agency and to get paid to be creative and to brainstorm ideas. And what ended up happening to me was I was unemployed for a year and a half out of graduating college, and I lived off my credit card. I was dead broke. I was in the negative amount of dollars. I would do anything for a job. I had a job at TGI Fridays as a server for 1 week, and I'd previously served all through college. And it was just so low to have this dream from a good university and all that you wanted to do. And now, not only am I a server at TGI Fridays, I have the worst tables because I'm brand new to doing this again. So that only lasted 1 week. And when I finally got my first air quotes real job, it was at a Fifth Third Bank call center selling home equity loans inbound in a call center, making $10 an hour in a cube farm with a computer with no internet access or email. I was Peter from the movie Office Space. I would show up 7 minutes late because I knew it could fit the number. I would leave 7 minutes early, and it was literally the last place on earth I wanted to be. And I know what it's like to live a large majority of your life, for me, a decade, not enjoying what you do and waking up every single day, not only not enjoying what you're going to do, but literally hating what you're going to do for 40 hours every single day. So when you hear me live this way, in this energy and this positivity and this way of thinking, you know what's really at the core of this? Because what am I willing to do to no longer work in a Fifth Third Bank call center making $10 an hour? Because that feeling is as low as it gets. And I know, I see you nodding your head right now. I know a lot of people can relate to this because we've all had, whether it's a job or maybe it's a relationship with a spouse, a friend, a family member, that thing when you wake up and man, there's that pit in your stomach where you're looking forward to the weekend because you got 2 days where you're not dealing with that thing. And you know what? All of what you see that I create in myself and for my clients and the way that I show up is because what am I willing to do to never go back to that place?
So that's kind of like saying, you know, if I look backwards as I'm trying to drive fast in my high performance vehicle, which is my life, I'm probably going to crash. And there's nothing good back there anyway to revisit because it's already done. And you know, just to follow some of the poets that we probably all follow, that river's changed. So what's the point of walking through it again, right? And you know, so talk a little bit more about how you feel like not just capable but ready to go from the committed student, right? Literally awarded from our Arete circle as the committed student, right? Which you probably accept pretty humbly, but it's also it's a great example to follow, right? To say, you know what, no matter how much I learn and how much I teach, I'm still committed to getting better and learning so that I can take those lessons to my students and my community. Can I help people understand what that bridge looks like?
Let me take you into that night when I received that award, because I think it'll answer all of this. So it's like we get invited to this event at Andy Frisella's house where people have been in Arete since the very beginning. And it just like comes in an email. It's like, hey, if you can be at Andy's house in a week, I'll come here. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I just want to thank Andy Frisella and Ed Milet for the way they have changed my life over the last 6 years. Like, just not only just being in their presence, but being in the presence of all of these just amazing, best people in the world. I just want to be there. So I have no expectations other than the most amount of gratitude you could conceivably have as a human possible. So they sit there and they're like, oh yeah, we're just going to give out these like plaques or crystals just for everyone for being a part of this. And I'm like, cool, this is just unbelievable. I get to shake Andy and Ed's hand. So when we talk about imposter syndrome, it is not possible to have more imposter syndrome than walking into that room with literally the greatest humans on earth. Like the two leaders, Andy and Ed, you see the things that they have done in their life and created, as well as every single person around you that you look around and you're like, this is a room full of killers in the best way possible. So I'm already like, let's just soak this thing in. And out of nowhere, Emily's like, we're going to give out a few awards for people who represent the core values of Arte. And I am someone that I'm very present. I've listened to and taken notes from every single call for 6 years. It's my entire Arte library. So I show up because what does Ed say? Implement at the speed of instruction. So I'm like, cool, got it. I'm going to do all of these things. So I know how I show up every single day in the way that I do these things. But at the same time, I know that there's a variety of events that Arte has, some of them at various income levels. And it's something that I haven't attended a ton of the events. So naturally, the self-limiting voice is like, there's no way I'm on anybody's radar because it's going to go to somebody who goes to all of these events where everybody knows everybody, right? So immediately I'm self-projecting my own imposter syndrome in the room full of the greatest people. So I'm just sitting there just soaking this thing in. And when they get to the Be a Lifetime Student Award, and then Emily says, and I would like to congratulate Rob Cressy, when I say that it shattered my belief ceiling of what is possible, it is literally the most surreal moment of my entire life, where I had to not pass out and cry at the same time. I'm serious because, one, I didn't even know this was a possibility. Two, I didn't even know there was an award. Three, I didn't even know they know who I was. All of these things. So it was just like my brain still breaks. And I almost feel uncomfortable rewatching the 1 minute video because of just how surreal it is. And I want to share this perspective for everybody because I walk up there and I receive the award. And the biggest thing that I learned from this was not about the day of receiving the award. It is what receiving the award creates in me moving forward. Who do I get to be the dude who received that award and lives all of this as that person? Because as we learn in Arte, we live forward. We look through the windshield, not back. So it's amazing. Receive an award, boom, love it. One of, if not the greatest moments of my professional career, for sure. But the lesson in all of this is what we do moving forward with this and how I can self-create it. And this story is actually not just about myself. It's about you and it's about everybody else. Because what this really helped me do is see how small I've been playing. And once again, remember the very beginning of how you opened this podcast together. You shared some very kind words about myself where you mirrored to me what you saw in me. And now all of a sudden, a group that I'm fully committed to the way that I live mirrored something to me. And it's like, wow, imagine if I showed up in the way that they all see me every single day. And it's why, and I coach around this so much and I share it so much in my content. This is why I call this a mindset, a lifestyle, in a way of being. Because every single thing that you and I share from this conversation, you know how much dollars it costs? None. Not a single dollar. Every single thing from your and I's conversation is a perspective. It's a story that we're telling ourselves. It's a way of being, in a way of being that creates the action in ourselves that creates the results that we want. So the good news is this is completely accessible for every single person listening or watching right now. And if you're open to that perspective, holy smokes, you say, wow, you're telling me that I can make everything in my life better every single day? Yeah, because it's just a perspective and a lens for how you show up. And of course, there will be levels and clarity and depth and stories that make this a lot more rich for yourself, like getting that award from Andy and Ed. But when you really just come down to day one, today, this moment, We all just have a choice in this moment. Do you choose to be the best version of yourself, to invest in yourself, to share something with someone, to give someone a compliment, to invite someone on their podcast? We all have that choice. And then you just stack it one by one by one by one by one. 12 years later, you might end up somewhere good.
Well, I mean, you ended up here, so you did end up somewhere. And
right.
and even the result of you being here is a result of me taking action to a post, right? Mind you, we never had a conversation before, and here we are just kind of chopping it up, right? Like two people at the deli, right? And because we both at our heart hustles, right? We hustle, but with a heart, right? And talk about how you take, almost like Jesse Isler, right? You take that hustle spirit into your business, into your family, right? How do you kind of bridge that gap? Because a lot of people, they hustle strong, they front strong, the imposter through life. Right? There's imposter syndrome, and then there's like just fake it all through the night. Go hard on maybe a few summits, right? But then peter out and run out of gas. And then there's nothing in the tank for market. So talk about how somebody can build business the right way and take that hustle spirit into a business that will last ongoing.
I'm going to simplify this in the easiest way possible in an area I struggled with mightily. And this also came from Ed Milet, system scale. That's all he said. Him and Andy would preach system scale, system scale. And I'm sitting there, and this is 6 years ago. I'm like, listen, I hear you. I want to do this, and I've never built a system in my life. And I have since created a framework around this that has really helped serve me. And I call it a self-auditing framework. And it is know, K-N-O-W, believe, live. Know, believe, live. What do I know to be true? What do I believe to be true? And am I living it? So when it came to system scale, and it's like, do I know this to be true? I'm like, Andy and Ed are saying this. All of this makes sense. Cool. I know that now. Number two, do you believe it? I'm like, 100%. The people on this call, the people in business, everything. I believe this. Are you living it? And I was like, no, I am not living this. So how in the world do you become a systems person if you have never built a system in your life? And you know what the answer is? You become a systems person. And the way that you become a systems person is by building your first system. And this is actually how I think about every single aspect of my life and my business, and how you build your business and your life together. Because I was not this person, and you're going to hear this narrative throughout every single thing that I say. And Andy says this all the time too. I've messed up, failed, or didn't do every single one of these things, which is why I am so qualified to share this, because I know what it is like to live with zero systems in my life. Remember, I started from a place with no self-awareness and no growth mindset. I had never read a book before outside of what you have to for college. So I was very much the work hard, play hard guy. Fitness wasn't a priority in well-being. I was not well-rounded, all of these various things there. And when you understand that system scale, you build one system at a time. Well, let's just reframe system to habits and routines. Then you go, wait a second. So you're telling me systems are really just doing one thing consistently. And there was one habit that changed my life forever. And it was learning how to read. So I'm sitting there at 12 years ago, and I was like, and I don't even know why, because I wasn't about this life yet. I was like, I want to audit the success habits of the most successful people in the world, the people I aspire to be like and do things like. What are they doing? So at the time, I'm subscribing to like Fast Company and Inc. magazine. This is when people still read magazines. So I'm just like devouring that sort of stuff. And you would hear a specific quote over and over again. The average CEO reads 60 books a year. And I probably had to hear it 10, 12 times. And I audited myself. I was like, Rob, how many books are you reading? 0. And I was like, crap, I should probably get on that. So if something is important enough, you will always find time to make it happen. When is there always time? First thing in the morning. This goes back to my fundamental, make today better than yesterday. So for the last 12 years, the very first thing that I've done every single day, weekends included, is read a book for 30 minutes. Because right out of the gate, by design, I'm already better than I was yesterday because I learned something. But then when you start reading leadership, creativity, entrepreneurship, business, marketing, you name it, all of a sudden, I became like Neo in the Matrix, who could learn Kung Fu or whatever you want. So each of these little stories or anecdotes that I'm sharing, brick, brick, brick. Reading a book for 30 minutes every single day helped me create a growth mindset. So all of a sudden you start with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then you hear about a guy named Tony Robbins. Then maybe that somehow moves over to Grant Cardone or Gary Vee or who knows what. And then you slowly get into the worlds of the Robin Sharmas of the world and the Ryan Holidays of the world. And you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you legitimately start to get excited to where you're like, wait a second, you're telling me I can learn and do and be anything? And all of a sudden, it's like my world went from black and white to color, where I was in complete control of every single aspect of my life. In the way that I create and coach and see this legitimately is by, and I use this phraseology, adding a tool to your creator tool belt. So every single one of these things, whether it's a single sentence or a perspective or a habit like reading for 30 minutes or meditating or journaling, any of these things, tool in your tool belt, tool in your tool belt, tool in your tool belt. So now all of a sudden these things start stacking, and then all of a sudden you get an Arte and you learn about this guy Ed Milet and Andy Frisella and then 75 Hard and Live Hard and all of these various things. And you could never imagine it possible when you're sitting at zero, which is why the commitment to the system is the most important thing. And the most important thing is to go from 0 to 1 and get started. And me getting started was reading a book for 30 minutes. And that single decision changed my entire life and is the reason why I'm talking to you right now.
Wow. I mean, it's effective and it's inspirational in terms of the power of consistency and action. And having been somebody who just loves reading, like, you don't have to tell me to read, like, that's not punishment. You talk about the next level and the next level, when you go into like that fourth dimension, you're like, all right, what do you think about Dr. Bruce Lipton and the biology of belief? You're like, because those are teachers and precursors to Tony Robbins. You're like, how many layers do you want to peel back of this onion? And you're like, until there's no onion left. You know what I mean? Like, you want to drive until the wheels run out, right? You want to go until, again, you run out of gas, but you don't get older. You're actually getting better. Talk about how people can improve with time as opposed to decay.
Soak in this quote. I would love for you and everybody listening right now to be open to this possibility. Imagine living your entire life in your prime. You're like, that's not possible. I'm getting older. Are you kidding me? I only get better when I get older. This is legitimately a superpower. Why? Because I love how circular this conversation is. Because part of what you and I live is earning our confidence. We do the things every single day and we show up because we are not guaranteed that we're not going to go back and be that person from 12 years ago. We're not. So every single day we do the actions to create the results, to build that belief in ourselves. And once again, like, if there's a tree of thought here, from the questions you're asking to our conversation to how all of these things weave together, this is like an entire diagram of 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree, this entire tree of thought. Because where does the energy come from? Where does the passion come from? Where does the consistency come from? How do you reach the next level? How do you not be an imposter syndrome? How do you be more? How do you create more? All of these things from the lowest level to the highest level right here. All of this is like the elixir that gets put together. And I feel like it's very important for me to mirror this back to you, because one of the things that I've experienced in the short time that you and I have created together on this podcast is how appreciative I am for being in this space with you right now, because You are a master at your listening, at your preparation, at the questions and understanding that you have of my world and your world and the worlds that we have together and how that applies to someone listening right now. And it's a very unique thing. And you might sit here and be like, yeah, this is nothing, but I'm going to encourage you to not throw that in the trash, because one of the greatest things you can do when you receive a compliment is to actually receive it and soak it in, because it is a very rare thing, the level that you are operating on. It's where high level conversation is effortless because of the way that you've earned your confidence, because the way that you've put in the work for yourself, done that inner work and your outer work. It's very important that I mirror that to you, because it's the number one thing that I am picking up from you right now.
Well, if you could tell, I don't think I blush that often, but you have me blushing like a Christmas elf right now. So I'm very humbled and honored, because you've done 30x the episode. So for you to detect that I'm on my game, or at least improving my game, to show up ready to honor our time together, right? So that we can make the most of this opportunity. Because now, let's say you talk about planting seeds and growing trees. All right, I'm going to challenge you. Give me 1 minute. Which Rob Cressy do I meet next year? Which tree blooms the best? Which new garden do I expect to grow? Screen capture this and visit it next year. Speak to the future you.
1 year from right now will be the best year of my life. I will be the best version of myself, and you will see me creating things that I have never done before. And in that mind, I am a leader of a community of coaches, entrepreneurs, and people who want to grow their business and life together. And I have a goal of building Unlimited Coach, my community, to $2 million in the next 24 months. And you know what? I don't have to know exactly how it's going to happen. I'm going to put that energy out there. And while we're here right now, I'm going to speak this too, because I also said this to Andy and Ed. One of my goals in life is to help 10 million people. And when I originally put that out there, it scared the crap out of me. It was the most uncomfortable I'd ever been in my entire life creating a single video, because originally my number was $1 million, 1 million people. Cool, I'll do that. Then you read 10X Rule and he's like, yeah, create a goal that's so big it scares you. And I was like, crap. How do I put myself on the hook? Well, I'm just going to speak that out loud. But then you start to get into the how of things. How am I going to help 10 million people? How am I going to quantify it? How do you bring that to life so it's ever present in you every single day? You know what my simple answer is? I just try and speak it as many times as I can to as many different people, because the way that you actually help 10 million people is to create that state of being in yourself as someone who wants to help 10 million people. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the micro, this is what I'm going to do, and a little bit of the macro.
Wow. Well, you put it together and it becomes macaroni. And I'm like, you got a beautiful dish here, and you're serving it properly, because you've put a lot of preparation to you and to what you present. And the example, because in order to attract, it's one thing to attract students. Everyone can attract students. Any marketer can attract students. But to attract teachers, right? That mirrors John Maxwell's servant leadership. Obviously, the Lord's example more ultimately. But, I would love to wind things down with sports. Now, mind you, you're going to be surprised with how much I know about sports, not watching the Daily's wins and losses. But I will tell you some of the people, as a Philadelphia fan, that I looked up to growing up. I looked up to figures such as Mike Schmidt, Ron Hextall. So I've met Ron Hextall, who's a great guy, and Joe Montana. Now I didn't meet Joe, but I did see him speak at a summit, right? And the fact that he defers to the team, I was like, oh, this is someone I looked up to when I was 8. Which sports figures did you look up to as a kid? Like, or which ones do you still say they hold the standard of good people to follow?
Oh, this is super simple for me. For one, so I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I grew up loving basketball. So without a doubt, number one, it still is today, because I'm looking at a picture of him on a Weeds box right now in front of me, is Michael Jordan. I wanted to be like Mike. I would go in my basketball hoop and do layups with my tongue hanging out. But as I started to mature as an entrepreneur and a coach and someone who's about this excellence life, what I loved about Michael Jordan is the standard. And this is another part of this giant mixture that you and I are putting together. All of this is a standard of excellence for yourself. So number one, Michael Jordan. And then number two, Mario Lemieux. That if I could have dinner with anybody, Mario Lemieux might be that one. Because number one, he was world class on ice. Number two, he saved the Pittsburgh Penguins from being moved to Kansas City. Because then number three, the Penguins drafted Sidney Crosby and won 3 more Stanley Cups. And I also lived in Chicago for 12 years. And there's no hyperbole when I say this. I have literally been raised in championships. I experienced 2 Stanley Cups with the Penguins. I've experienced 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers, 6 with the Chicago Bulls. And then I was in Chicago when the Cubs won the World Series and when the Blackhawks won 3 Stanley Cups. So literally, the standard in which I live my life is we are the best. The standard is the standard. We win championships. So there's no surprise that I'm around people like you where we say we are about winning all the time.
Well, I think you definitely are a good luck charm, and you're more than welcome to live in Philadelphia for a few years. So at least one of our teams can finally win another championship. But the fact that you have been a part of, let's say, where Lemieux was, right? And the little bit that I know about Lemieux is that he goes from, like you said, world-class player to the owner's box, right? There's an elevation, right? Going from the gladiator in the arena, which we all look up to, as Teddy Roosevelt famously penned, and to go from that, which could be a short-lived career of greatness, of legacy, of inspiration, but then, again, just like Jordan, right? Greatness, right? The guy who played with the flu, right? Who performed at his best when he shouldn't have been performing at all. He lied to his doctor that he was all right, and he just played at his best while he was at his worst, right? And this guy won. He kept winning. And then he made that magic deal with Nike, right? And however that, you know that story, right?
Of course.
The whole shoe dog story, and how they were a running shoe company, and somehow they just say, you know what, this is going to be yours. And here's the thing that you maybe want to touch on, or as an inspiration for life and business, the fact that Nike was willing to pay the fine. They were willing to step out of bounds in order to please the client, and have ultimate unreasonable hospitality in pleasing the client and ensuring the relationship.
Side note, good book for anybody who's not picking up on the context clues right there. Just check out the book on Reasonable Hospitality. You learn the rules so that you can break them and throw them in the trash. So one of the things that has been part of my entrepreneurial career is as a podcast coach. It's not as much anymore because I've moved on to the AI and ChatGPT side and the self-development side. And one of the things that when I am coaching someone to launch a podcast, what I'm really doing is teaching them all of the rules, all of the foundations to build that consistency. Because so many people get stuck on the 0 to the I haven't even launched yet, the fear, the judgments, the self-limiting beliefs, the all that you don't know, without realizing, listen, there's only 3 things. 1, learn it yourself. 2, buy a course, or 3, hire a coach. Those are your 3 paths that you can take, but everybody over-dramatizes these things right there. And the next level of this is they're so scared to get to the launch. And then I'm like, by the way, the launch actually isn't the goal. The goal is to get to episode 20, because by getting to episode 20, you've ridden the proverbial podcast bike 20 times to learn via experience. So the things that you think you don't know right now, you actually learn how to do them consistently, so that after 20 episodes, you're like, oh, this serves me. This doesn't. I can do this. I'm not going to do this. So for so many people, you say, listen, I want you to record on the same day every week and publish on the same day every single week, because a lot of people are inconsistent in what they do. With me right now, I don't follow any of the things that I teach, because I can do a 1-minute podcast immediately after this with you. I could do a 1-hour live stream, all of that stuff. Because remember this, and this is one of my favorite quotes in the world that I live by. A master knows what not to include. And this is similar to you learn the rules so that you can break them. And where I learned this is I took a course on how to launch a course in 30 days. Because one of the things that ended up happening is when I'm talking about sports, and this is pre-podcasting era, people are like, Rob, how do you launch a podcast? Rob, how do you launch a podcast? So I got tired of having the same conversation over and over again. So I'm like, I'm just going to scale my knowledge by creating a course. But I've never created a course before. So what did I do? I took a course on how to create a course in 30 days, and it was appropriately named Easy Course. How can we actually make this easy? And this is actually so applicable to everything that we're talking about, because this lifestyle, mindset, and way of being of high performance and success and excellence, let's just make it easy on ourselves. And by design, so many programs are like, we have 1,000 hours of video footage in our course and you should love this thing. And I sit there and I'm like, I got about 4 minutes a day. So I'm not impressed by your 1,000 hours of footage. So now in the creation of a course, once again, system scale, learning the structure of this, it became a way of organizing this in a way where it was just a 3 to 7 minute video. So it's like, imagine outlining your course where you have 10 main pillars, and under each one is 3 sub bullet points. And each sub bullet point is 3 to 7 minutes. So actually, I can transform your entire life, whether it's AI and ChatGPT, launching a podcast, or self-development and high performance, 4 minutes at a time over the course of 1 to 2 months, to where it's simple and easy. And at the end of it, you're like, oh my God, I got all of this. Because remember, a master knows what not to include, because you and I live in a world where it's just like, let me share as much stuff as I can with you all the time. Blah, 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 because this is hustle culture 101. More. But the best in the world operate from less.
Less is definitely more. And I mean, it just harkens back to that. You probably remember that story where Picasso was in a cafe and a waitress said, would you please scribble some art for me on a napkin? And he was happy to instantly, and he did. And she said, well, may I have this? And he says, of course, $5,000. She goes, what? It only took you a minute. She's like, yeah, it took a minute, but it took 40 years of mastery to do this. So, like, if you're able, as an advisor, as a coach, as a teacher, to have a course that concentrates 10 years of struggle into a few hours of instruction, properly implemented, and you can save all the suffering that you had to go through, wow, what a gift, right? And you know, how much do people have to pay to get out of their pain? It's a cost, but it's an investment in their future, right? So you know how to deliver what you have in an expert way, and it's just about widening your audience and deepening your impact, which you're doing every day. So that's an inspiration to all.
I have to do this right now because you led the horse all the way to the water. So guess what?
Let's go.
I am going to give that gift for you and every single person here. So go to builtforthegame.com and you will get my personal growth and self-mastery program absolutely for free. And this is the exact same thing that I take every single one of my clients through. And why in the world am I giving this away for free? This is so beautiful that we're getting to this point. Because for so long, I sat there and literally our conversation here is now in a series of 3 to 4 minute videos going, you can do this, all of this, not to become Rob, but the blueprint for you to be built for the game. The original name of this was Design Your Best Self. And then I created a different branding to where it's built for the game, because ultimately how to succeed and win in the game of business and life for the long haul, built for the game. And I would sit there, and if I wasn't bringing in clients on a consistent basis, I'm like, this thing could help so many people. Like, I've already created the blueprint. I'm already living the blueprint. Why don't I just offer this up for free? But people like you and I, we understand free attracts free. So you don't value what you do not pay for. So on my end, completely unromantic. I'll charge $10,000 or $0 or anything in between. It's all the same difference, because ultimately I care more about your transformation in this than anything. So for the longest time, it was just for my one-on-one clients, and I would give that to them. I would also have everyone on my team, my virtual assistants, all of them go through it. Boom, 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 changes their life, the framework for this. And then I just said, stop playing small, give it away for free, because I know by design, most people aren't going to do it anyways. But I am there to impact the one person who does it that says, wait a second, I've been waiting for that sign from that universe, from that seed that says, let's ask that exact same question to someone listening right now that you asked me. 1 year from right now, what does that vision of your life look like? Well, congratulations. Go to builtforthegame.com. I promise you this. If you go through that program, your life will be changed forever. There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever, because this is ultimately about one thing: commitment. Your commitment to doing the work. What did we say? System, process, mindset, lifestyle, way of being, consistency, drip, 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 ones over zeros, plus ones, zero, not negative one. Man, how can I create these habits? What can I do to be the better version of myself? What if I'm starting at zero? What if I'm already a master? What can I do to make things simple and easy? All of these things come together. Guess what? This is this opportunity. And for me, the greatest gift that you can give me is being one of those 10 million people that I help. And if it just so happens that this served you, then you and I can have a conversation about it.
Thank you for this early holiday gift. This is like, all right, just to go back to sports for a moment. This is like, first of all, you mirror some Zen principles of Coach Phil Jackson, right? And he led Jordan and others to greatness. He knew that Rodman needed to go push the release valve once in a while, and he knew Horace Grant filled in that team, and he knew all these other players, and he knew how to work the team and the system, right? And you're kind of following and mirroring these examples. So to everybody out there, take advantage of that. Like, if somebody gives you something, don't just say thank you and let it pile up. Print it, put it to work, ask questions. And when you actually implement it and start making money, guess what? And you built a tool, right? Then go back to the master and say, hey, what's next? And he's going to say, okay, I got this course. And you're going to invest in that course willingly and put the effort in to make it work. And if you didn't do the work, it's your fault. Take ownership. But, when you have somebody like Rob in your corner, that's like Mickey do you like the Rocky movies?
Of course. I mean, you're a Philadelphia guy, of course.
All right. I'm just testing.
Rocky Four is my favorite, and is arguably one of the best movies ever. So number one, Rocky Four is my number one Rocky, and Rocky Four is in my sports Mount Rushmore of best sports movies.
Okay. Well, if you ever, I'm just going to put that challenge out there. If it's something I tried to kind of backpedal and get to Stallone, but I don't think he's ready for this project. But maybe we are, to one day resuscitate Joe Frazier's gym in North Philly, right? And I always think like, hey, the fights need to happen in the ring instead of on the street, right? Because literally the other week, outside of one of my properties, someone got murdered, right? Not any of my tenants, but that hits close, right? These are areas that we all live in, right? And we want them to be safe and strong. And by educating the future into making good choices, we're going to build better patterns, right? And have structured homes, safe homes, so that we can attract good partners and build strong kids, right? Because I imagine, like, what would be like the one lesson that you would want to teach a kid out there who might not have a stable home to have a strong father figure?
It's a very unique question, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because this would be very challenging because I was not in that case, but this is the advice that I share for everyone because it's the most impactful thing that's been a part of my life. And it's only one word: believe. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, believe in your ability that you can do whatever you want to do. And the challenge for that answer for that kid right there is they're living in a world where belief is not even a word in their language. So how in the world would that kid get to the point where he can believe that something else is possible for themselves? But man, the world of sports is littered with this. There's a great book by Caron Butler called Tough Juice, where Caron Butler played for, among other things, the Washington Wizards. I believe he's as an assistant coach right now for the Miami Heat. He was prolific at UConn in college, but he grew up on the tough side of the world where there wasn't a lot of parental support. And there's a lot of drugs and gangs and all of that stuff over there. So there are stories of people who have made it happen. So you get to latch on to the belief that something is possible. So how do you get a book like Tough Juice from Caron Butler into the hands of someone like there? You're like, all right, well, I'm going to use basketball as that connection to say, wait a second, something is possible there. And maybe this isn't about getting into the NBA, but it's about the belief that if you put in the work and you show up every single day, because any story you hear from any player in the NBA who came from absolute poverty and went into something amazing, it is all about this love of basketball, but there's this commitment to it where they show up in such a way where they go to school, they're dribbling a basketball, they play basketball nonstop. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff going around them that is unsavory to say the least. But man, belief for me, whether you're an inner city kid or you're making millions of dollars, belief is the most powerful thing of my entire life, because as long as you believe, you're in the game.
Oof. Wow, that's power. So let's close it out with a football reference, right? So let's talk about building that bulletproof mindset and maintaining that steel curtain, right? That hard line that nothing comes through, no criticism, no setback, no unexpected moment will pierce this veil, this armor that we've built for ourselves, that when we march forward, we're going to hit the goal line. If not right now, but in the very soon future. How can you become that quarterback that's willing not only to throw the pass, but push your way forward to hit that score?
I specialize in this because it is the area that is the hardest. And when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I love your level of questions here. So the next thing that I audited for myself, you hear the statistics on entrepreneurship and small business. It's like 80% fail in the first year or 90% in the first 3 or 5 years. So literally, by leaving a comfortable 6-figure job, I'm now jumping into something that has the greatest failure rate on the planet. And Andy talks about this nonstop. He's like, by design, the failure rate is like a bajillion percent there. So I just asked myself one question. What do I need to be to not be those people? And the answer is only one thing. Don't quit. If I specialize in not quitting, then I am still in the game, which is where belief came in. So there's a book that changed my life. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. It's all around Stoic philosophy. I was not this dude back then. And I can have this on a necklace right now because it's that important for me. And it's based on Marcus Aurelius and Stoic philosophy. And it says, what stands in the way becomes the way. And the way that I love to articulate this is you turn obstacles and adversity into opportunities. So for me, one of the mantras I live by is prepare for what's difficult when it's easy. I live in Sarasota, Florida, and in the last month, we've had 2 hurricanes, including the most recent one 2 weeks ago, where my family evacuated and we had to go to the other side of Florida. And you know what? Was it challenging? It was incredibly challenging. I've got an almost 3-year-old child. I've got a wife. I've got a dog. I've got a grandma and grandpa. We're moving into a hotel. We don't know if our house is going to get destroyed. Thankfully, it was okay. And I'm sitting there, and one of the things that Ed Milet teaches us is around equanimity, our ability to stay cool and calm under chaos. Because here's the reality of the situation for me as an entrepreneur, and the same was true for COVID. A hurricane or COVID is just another day in my life because there's always another hurricane on the horizon. Therefore, prepare for what's difficult when it's easy. I'm sitting there on Siesta Key Beach 1 month after Andy Frisella created 75 Hard for the first time. And I'm listening to his podcast for a second time. At the time, I didn't live in Sarasota. I was in Chicago. And I'm listening to it. And he says, I guarantee you that if you go all in on this, 75 days is a small price to pay to become the best version of yourself. And I sat there and I was like, it's about to be summertime Chicago, street festivals, Cubs games, Lollapalooza. I don't want to give up all of that, the whole not drinking. And then a little bird came on the top of my shoulder and it said, "Hey, Rob, I thought you were all in on your dreams and being the best version of yourself." And I was like, I sat there and I said, for the reason that I do not want to do it, I have a hole in my game. How can I be about this life where this mentor who has poured into me, who says you will be the best version of yourself if you do the hardest thing you've ever seen in your life? Because back then, 1 month in versus whatever, 7 years in, totally different versions of 75 hard, because it felt like climbing Mount Everest. And I went ahead and did it. And this is where this bulletproof mindset came in, this earned confidence. Because as Mike Tomlin says, the standard is the standard. Prepare for what's difficult when it's easy. What am I willing to do that others are not? And one of mine, I'll leave you on this. One of my declarations I speak every single day, and especially when I'm running or training for a marathon, where I got to wake up at 5 in the morning and go and run 5 or 20 miles, is I am an epic overachiever. And that came from one of Ed's calls. What am I willing to do that others are not? And I sit there running in Sarasota, and it'll be 5:27 in the morning, and I'll look, pitch black, stars in the sky, not a car anywhere, not a single soul is up, except for me paying my dues, preparing for what's difficult when it's easy. So once again, here is the bow on all of this. This is a mindset, a lifestyle, and a way of being.
Wow. I mean, you rounded out and you became Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm telling you. You know what it is? I really appreciate who you are. Behind the scenes, like I just kind of had to improve my game so that I could be ready for this moment right here.
Well, you, my friend, capitalized on this moment, and we're gonna have another conversation after this, to where I can mirror some things back to you in a positive way, in a growth way.
Oh yeah.
But I will say this to you, as Tim Grover says in the book Relentless, everything's labeled number one because it's all most important. But this podcast episode and conversation is in the one of all podcast conversations I have had in 2024. And there's no hyperbole when I say this. This was truly a 1% of 1% conversation. Ed and Andy say these things all the time. Go back and re-listen to this. I want the transcript of this to then go and self-create this with ChatGPT and everything else, because this was literally a masterclass on mindset, excellence, being the best version of yourself, no matter what level you're at right now.
Well, I want to applaud you for kind of rising up to the challenge, because I know you're battle tested and hardened, and I think that you're ready in the moment, and I think a proper samurai master, right, like Musashi, right, to quote Robert Greene, he'd be ready for that next battle. He just didn't want to fight anymore after the 59th kill. So keep slaying on the high level the right way with a smile.
Thank you. Because here's the thing. You're always ready when this is a mindset, lifestyle, and a way of being for yourself. I'm never not like this, because this is how I choose to show up and live my life, because of the lens and the perspective that this creates for me. And side note, stay ready. Like, I'm a born winner. Let's go. Like, we are always ready, right? Because I know we're going to say we're ending it on this, because there is always going to be an opportunity there. And do you want to be that person who meets Mario Lemieux or Ron Hextall or Joe Montana in the elevator and you don't shoot your shot? I have to share this story. I know this is the end, but this is the perfect, because you talked about it. I've been a part of Jesse Itzler's community for years. Yeah. And Jesse's energy, his enthusiasm for life, the way that he sees the world, all of that stuff. Immediately, I saw him speaking at 10X Growth Con in Miami years ago. Never heard of him in my life. And within 3 minutes, I was like, who is this dude in a t-shirt and a headband, and why is he my spirit animal? I was like, this guy is incredible. So I joined his Build Your Life Resume community and the Big Ass Calendar Club and 30 Days of Excellence, because why would I not want to learn from the best in the world? And being a go-giver, I'm always looking to create these opportunities to share perspectives. And one of the things you'll notice is that if you Google 75 hard or live hard phase 1, 2, or 3, my blog post shows up. If you search Arte Syndicate, my blog post shows up. Why? Because part of me of being a creator is let me share my perspective on this, because I know very few people in the communities are going to create an SEO optimized blog post that leads back to the thing of the communities that people are a part of. But guess what? I'm a part of the best communities in the world. Why would I not want the best people in the world to see a review of how I'm sharing these things? So Jesse had this thing for 30 Days of Excellence where they were running a contest to see who could get a bunch of referrals or something. So naturally, I created a video, a podcast, an SEO optimized blog post all around 30 Days of Excellence. And then I sent it to him and on Instagram. And up until that point, I'd only been somebody in the chat who's just do. And all of a sudden, and I remember this, I'm living in Chicago and my wife and I are going to eat dinner at Bird's Nest, our favorite place for wings. And I get a DM from Jesse Itzler in response to that. He goes, "Holy smokes, this is incredible. What's your phone number?" And like, I'm sitting about to eat with my wife. We just got there 3 minutes ago. And immediately my entire body got as warm and as flush as you could get, because I'm like, do you respond right now? Do you wait? What are you doing? I'm about to eat dinner and all of this. And I'm like, shoot your shot. So I'm like, boom, here's my phone number. I kid you not. 1 minute and 30 seconds later, my phone rings and it's Jesse Itzler. And he goes, "Dude, that blog post was unbelievable. The reward of the blog post was to go meet Jesse and somebody else. I got him to call me in doing this. So now all of a sudden, all of my training as a podcast host, as somebody who lives this life, this standard of excellence, it is coming in real time. My dude gave me a call. So he's like, hey, Rob, so tell me a little bit more about you and what you're doing. We don't have 30 minutes to go and unpack everything going on in our life. This is samurai sword time. I come in here and immediately the switch flips in my brain to where the best way I can describe this is I'm now treating this like a client call, not to turn him into a client, but the energy and exactness that people like you and I would come in if that dude comes. Because remember, we train to be ready for the opportunity. You don't know. So Jesse comes, I'm like, boom, high level, this, working on this, or vision. He asked something about here. I know he's the owner of one of the part owners of the Atlanta Hawks. I just so happened to, in building my brand in the world of sports, have the CMO of the Atlanta Hawks on my podcast 1 month ago. So now I have the ability to recall that I had a conversation. I believe her name was Erin at the time. I was like, yeah, man, I had this idea for Erin about blah, blah, blah. And Jesse's like, well, yeah, if you ever have any idea that you want to pitch me, let me know. And I was like, I do right now. And boom, I pitched him on the spot for this idea that was a yes and to the way that the Hawks could use podcasting for blah, 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 blah. So then as we're wrapping the bow on this, I know Jesse's a high level person. So I was like, it gets to like the action item time. And I was like, Jesse, here's what I need. I need you to put me in contact with either your assistant or the person on your team for the next steps. Who do I need to have a conversation with? He goes, cool. I'm going to put you in touch with Tony and Eric. It's like, cool. Those two, and they'll take it from there. And boom, I left that. And I believe it was an 11-minute conversation. When I put that phone down, I was shaking. Like, I couldn't, it was, we talked about surreal experiences. This was the number 2 surreal experience. It was number 1 until the Arte thing happened. So this happens and my wife comes back. She went to the bathroom. She comes back. She sees something's happening. I'm like, yo, don't leave me alone right now. She comes back. I couldn't even eat dinner. I was shaking. I was just like, it was an outer body experience. And I'm sharing this because I've experienced twice in my life something happening where your brain can't conceive it's possible. But guess what? Boy, was I glad that I did the work for 12 years in a row, every single day. So that when Jesse Itzler gave me a phone call once, boom, I capitalized on that, and now I can share this story right now.
You showed up. You did the same thing he did many, many years ago at that Cannes Film Festival in front of Matt Damon. Right? The same
Right.
thing. Right? And I got to ask him a question on my name day, literally almost 5 years ago, October 26, 2019, at my first Arete event. And I don't fully recall what I asked him, and I was kind of nervous, but I did feel good with his response. Right? And a lot of times it's how you feel, right? And so you know how someone is. You study their game. You understand their business practices, and maybe you've read their books. Maybe you've read Living with the Monk. Maybe you read Living with the Seal. Maybe you've heard him on a whole bunch of podcasts. And then when he talks to you, you're like, oh, I'm ready. Well, guess what? I would be ready too. I'd have 2 pitches in my pocket available right now, right? One would be, and I'll speak it openly, it's called Hire Vets. It's a charity I named for my friend Joe Peoples. He's actually in Vegas right now connecting with people. So you see, sometimes you could throw your pitch out there, and if they don't accept it, that's okay. Somebody else might. Right? But if you're ready in that moment, right, and you connected on that deep level, it's okay you skip dinner. I think your wife understands that, you have to take that call. Not every night, but
greatest non-eating dinner of my life.
Right. Well, I was going to ask you, does the food taste better? You're like, no, I was nauseous. I was ready.
So here's how we're ending this. Yeah. I am drinking out of a Build Your Life Resume water bottle right this second. So let that be the impact of Jesse Itzler in the world and the community he's created.
That's amazing. Well, keep elevating your game. I look forward to interviewing you next year. And next year, what we're going to do is we're going to have a split screen of that moment where you're talking to yourself. And we're going to actually have like a checklist and say, okay, what did we hit and what did we miss on? So let's make sure we have more hits than misses.
Love that. Thank you so very much for this conversation. This made my day.
How can people reach you online, Rob?
So I'm a lot of different places. So number one, buildforthegame.com. If you want my self-mastery and personal growth and development program, my gift for you. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook at Rob Cressy. I've got a podcast appropriately named Built for the Game. You can find me on YouTube, Rob Cressy, or I'm actually an expert. We didn't even get to it, but it's okay. Around ChatGPT and AI, I run a community called Unlimited Coach. You can go to unlimited.coach. It's for people who want to grow their business and life together through AI and self-development. It's not about outsourcing it to the robots. It's all around how we can do things faster and easier in a more human way.
Well, you show people the path and how to get connected and grow in themselves and in their business. So I highly recommend Rob, and I don't recommend people at all. So if you want to take that as a testimonial, go ahead and cash that check. Because relationships matter, and I honor the way that you've built your relationships and your way. So thanks again for being on the show today, Rob.
You're welcome.
All right.